In this video, I'm going to be walking you through how to use NextAuth with Next.js to add auth to your application without using a third-party provider, for example, like Auth0 or anything like that. Hosting your own auth, but using OAuth to do it. So let's go ahead and walk through how this works. So we're going to go ahead and start up a new application. I'm going to come in here and we're going to do npx create NextAuth or next app, and then we're just going to call it auth. So I'll go ahead and save that. It'll go ahead and run the instructions to create the Next.js application in the auth folder, and then we'll go ahead and start adding NextAuth into the app. So that's done. We're going to cd into auth, and then I'm just going to do code-a to open it up in my file structure on VS Code. So we're good there. And so first we want to do is we want to install NextAuth. So I'm just going to use yarn add NextAuth. So we're good to go there. Now following these instructions, we basically need to create a auth folder inside of the API folder. And then we need to create a file with the ... syntax. It's basically destructuring a whole bunch of routes for you, so you don't actually have to create a whole bunch of new files. So if I create that there, then we just want to copy this entire file over, and we'll walk through it. So basically this is using NextAuth with its providers, and they have a whole bunch of providers. So if I click here, you can see that there's a whole bunch of providers you can use that all follow the OAuth syntax. They all have this similar callback URL that you need to provide. And so we're just going to go with GitHub to start with. We're going to walk through first without a database, and then we're going to add a database as well, so you can see how that works. So to start, we need to get a GitHub ID and a GitHub secret in our .m file. I'm going to go ahead and show the .m file that I'm creating just because I'm going to be deleting the OAuth app before this video gets uploaded, so you won't be able to use these anyways, but you'll know exactly how to create them. So first we'll need to go to GitHub. So we'll go to authorized applications. I'm just going to go down to developer settings here and go to OAuth apps and create a new OAuth app. And then I'm just going to call this auth video. And then for the homepage URL, it doesn't really matter, but since Next locally uses 3000, we're going to go ahead and go with that. The most important thing is this authorization callback URL. So like it was showing inside of here for the providers, origin app auth callback provider, that's exactly how you're going to want to set it up inside of the callback. So we'll say localhost 3000 /API /auth /callback. And of course we're using GitHub, so we'll do GitHub. I'm just going to register the application. We'll have a client ID that will stick here for the GitHub ID. And then on top of that, we're going to generate a new client secret, copy that over to here and save that. And then next thing, we want to actually add a page to be able to click a button and sign in. So coming down here, this is just the client-side React hooks version of this. So I can go ahead and copy this over to our pages index. Just going to delete the boilerplate there and save. And so what NextAuth Client gives you is a few nice features. There's a sign in and sign out button. So sign out destroys the cookie session, sign in directs you to the page to sign in, and then of course use session as just a hook to give you a loading state and then give you back that session. So you can actually like direct them, for example, if they're not signed in, or just provide a button. This page is just going to provide basically buttons to direct yourself, whether you're signed in or signed out. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and then we're going to go ahead and do yarn dev to start the server up. And then we'll show you exactly how this works. There's going to be a few warnings we can walk through in the console, but this should work as is. So just refresh the server, not signed in. We'll go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Click sign in. There's the boilerplate page you get, API auth sign in. This is all customizable. If you wanted a different look, you can change this. So I can click sign in with GitHub. And this gives you the authorization here. So I can say, it's only wanting full access to personal user data and nothing else. So I can say authorized nearby coder. That'll redirect you back. And so we're signed in, and we're signed in with cookie auth. There's no server data right now. So of course, if I refresh, we still have that token and all that in the client. We are signed in. What we want to do now is first we're going to clear some of these warnings that we have in the console. So there's a couple here. We're going to go ahead and just walk through them. The first one is this NextAuth URL. It's just basically saying, hey, I don't know where I need to redirect and provide that link to the provider. So what I can do is, I know for my local machine, I'm going to do localhost 3000. But if I was deploying this to Vercel or something like that, you would change this to the domain that you're pointing to. The next thing that there's this session warning auto-generated signing key. So this is basically just extra security on top of what you're already providing for this. So we're just going to provide like a JWT session key for this, and it provides you instructions on how to actually set this up. So basically we're just going to copy this over into our NextAuth. After providers, we're just going to paste this here, and then we want to provide this environment variable here. And what we need to do is, it says we want to install a node Jose tools. So I can just come down here, stop the server, and we'll do npm install -g node Jose tools, save that, and it gives you a nice little script here to run just to generate this JWT. And so we can copy this into this right here. Again, this is all secret stuff. You shouldn't be sharing this, but again, I'm sharing it so you know exactly how to do this. So I went ahead and saved. So we should be good to restart the server, and then we should not get any console warnings or errors going forward for that. So if I refresh, not signed in, of course, because everything changed. So if I refresh, I can sign in with GitHub, and you'll see that I'm signed in, nothing in the console, we're all good. So the next stage is, say you want to provide some sort of way to identify some other records that you have in your database with this user. What would be really good is if we actually had the ability to add these records to our database, right? So let's go ahead and walk you through how to set that up. So we're going to go ahead and uncomment this database process database URL environment variable, and then we're going to want to go to Prisma because we're going to be installing Prisma for this. So I just want to do npm install save. I'm just going to use yarn here. So npm add prisma --dev, and then that'll actually give us, we also want to install a global, or actually don't even have to install it. You can use npx for this, but npx prisma generate. Actually, we'll want a init first to init the folder structure, and you'll see once that's done, you'll see that like we have, let's see, should be cd auth. Let's do code -a dot to make sure that this is opened up on the left hand side here, because it doesn't look like it is. We'll just open that file here for us. There we go. There, now it has the Prisma file. Okay, so from here, what we want to do is, we already have the schema that's kind of generated for us, and then in our M file, it generated also a database URL. We'll want to change some of this stuff. For example, my user is nearby coder, localhost doesn't have a password for me, and then also we need to set up the database name. So we're going to call this auth example, and then schema is public. We can just remove that for now. And so what we want to do is, before we actually go with running this, we'll go into, I use Postico, but you can use whatever. This is using Postgres locally. I'm just going to go ahead and add a database, call it auth example. Actually, let me go ahead and remove the one that I have here. Drop database, and then add database auth example. So we're good there. And so that's set up. And then we want to go back to the schema file, and we want to go to the Prisma adapter. So how you can get to that is just when you're on NextAuth, you can say Prisma up here. and then it'll actually walk you through what you need to install to get this to work. So I'm just going to copy this over here. And then we're going to do yarn add that. And then we need to modify what we have here for the NextAuth. Pretty simple. We just want to change these imports up, and then we want to add this adapter and uncomment the database. So we're good there. Everything's working for that. The next thing we need to do is it shows us the schema file stuff that we need to set up. So I'm just going to copy this over. We need to remove a few things. For example, we don't need these lines because we already have ours set up. And then also this provider account ID needs to be int. There's a small mistake there. GitHub requires that to be an int. I'm not sure if any other auth providers work with that, but that's a step that I had to do for getting this to work. So the next thing that we can do is we can do, we're going to generate migrate. So npx prisma migrate dev, because we're going to do local dev. Then we can name it anything. I'm going to name it auth. It'll actually generate a migration for us and migrate the database. So now if we come back to our database, we'll see, let me go ahead and go to the auth example. We'll see that we have account, session, and user tables for us to work with. So we should be able to sign in and have that filled up with my GitHub user's account. So let's do yarn dev. And then I'm going to refresh. And then I'm going to click sign in. Oh, Prisma not defined. Oh, yarn add Prisma --dev. Yarn dev. You know what? I need to, there we go. Yarn add Prisma --dev. I was in a directory lower, so it didn't actually get installed in the npm file. So now if I do yarn dev and we refresh, go here, Prisma.defined. Oh, one step that I missed here. Let's go back to providers here. There's one line that I missed right here. So that just creates the Prisma client, and any config options that you need to put inside of there, you can put inside of there. Refresh. Now we should get the sign in page. Sign in with GitHub, and we're signed in. And then if we come over here and refresh, we should see that we have an account set up, OAuth, GitHub, there's that ID, the int that I was telling you about, and then session and user. So we're all good. We actually have an authorized user that's saved in the database that we can actually attach relationships to and just work with that. No need for auth 0 or anything like that. This was very simple to set up. And that's it for this video. Next video, I might actually get into adding like a task that's attached to this user. So each individual user that logs in, they can actually see the tasks that they own directly. But that's it. We'll see you in the next video.